long time. And I remember when I got the diagnosis at 25, I went into the hospital and the nurse just basically said, "You've got PCOS, go away." And I was like,
What?
Well, what does it mean? And how do I get more information? And she said, "You don't really need to know anything until you want to have a baby. Just go to your doctor, talk to your doctor, but until you want to have a baby, then don't worry about it." And I was at that point where I was starting to think I was wanting to have a baby very soon. And she handed me a leaflet and she said goodbye. And I went back to work and I sat at my desk and I was crying. I felt it was so bittersweet. I was relieved that I'd found out what was wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt really sad because I knew that there were potentially implications for my fertility, and I was really biologically ready. Like that clock started to tick, and I was like, I want to have a family. I want to have a big family. I want to have them close together in age, and it just didn't work out like that.
Mm-hmm. So what's the age difference between your son and your daughter?
So I've got 3 children. So my son is 19, my next daughter is 14, and my next daughter is 10.
Okay.
And ironically, all of them were conceived naturally, which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only my middle child that didn't come straight away. So my son was pretty much conceived on my honeymoon, just after I got back from my honeymoon. And my daughter there's that 5-year age gap with her. And then we were so scared of having another miscarriage because I ended up losing twins as well. After I'd gone through IVF, I went back to Norway. I had a frozen embryo transfer. I fell pregnant with twins. I was very excited. Was in the middle of emigrating over to Australia. Thought amazing, going out as a family of 5, and then I lost one of the twins, and then I lost the next one.
Oh.
With my third daughter, we didn't try for years because my husband wasn't sure that he wanted to risk going through another miscarriage or anything happening to me. We'd been told I could never go through IVF again because it would kill me, so of course that was not an option.
Mm-hmm.
But we did have these frozen embryos over in Norway, but we couldn't get access to them. They wouldn't release them, so we decided to try naturally. And literally the night that I said let's try and my husband agreed, he said, "I'll give it 6 months. You've got me for 6 months and then we're done." I didn't have a normal cycle at that point either, so I had no idea where I was in my cycle, and I fell pregnant that night.
Oh,
which
wow.
I think is pretty miraculous. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. I feel like she was ready and she'd been waiting for me for years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't know if this is just none of my business, but why could you not get your own embryos from Norway?
I don't know. That was the information that we had been given, and the obstetrician that we'd started working with in Australia was really confused as to why they wouldn't release them. We'd only literally just moved out to Australia to begin a new life, and we'd come out here without jobs, and so we didn't have the resources for me to keep going back to Norway to pay for those flights to go and have the cycle by myself, have the frozen embryos transferred by myself. If we hadn't have been able to conceive naturally, maybe we would have tried that. And I'd never wanted to have frozen embryos because I'd not wanted to have to make the choice about what to do with them after I'd either completed my family or it hadn't worked out for whatever reason. I emotionally couldn't keep going with it. But that decision too was taken away from me because those embryos were actually destroyed. They'd written a letter to my house in the UK, but I never got it. And then another letter came a number of months later saying, "We didn't hear from you, so the embryos have been destroyed." And I remember one of my male friends reading that letter to me over the phone, not knowing whether our journey to have our family had been completed or not, and feeling terrified that I was going to be really upset. Fortunately, we decided 3 was enough and we were done, but that was pretty hard, and I never got the opportunity to maybe donate to another family who were trying or give my embryos to science to help other couples understand why things happen and miscarriages happen, etc.
Unbelievable. That's heartbreaking. I can't even. So let's do this. Let's skip ahead a little bit because because you are now coaching, right? You're helping people
Yes.
through this process. So you've learned a ton, but a lot of what you hit on this a few minutes ago. Excuse me. Um, but about mindset is a big piece of this, and you had to change your mindset in ways, and you're working with people now on that. I know there's a lot more to it, but talk about what happened with your own mindset as you went through this process.
I think for me, I realised, as I'd already mentioned, that I wasn't in control of anything, and so I surrendered. I finally let go of the need to control the outcome, and I put my faith in the universe, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it and believe in,
Mm-hmm.
and said, okay, I would love a second chance at life, and if you give me that, I will spend the rest of my life being of service, and I will walk towards my fears, and I will support other people to do the same thing. And at that time, I didn't know what that looked like or what that meant, but I just knew that I had to trust in something bigger than myself, because I didn't, what it felt like for the first time in my life, I didn't have the answers, and I didn't know where to go to get myself out of this situation. And I also had started, so I'd learned meditation, thankfully, many years before, and mindfulness. And without meditation and mindfulness, I wouldn't be alive. Those were the things that got me through the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual pain that I experienced when I was in ICU and when I was in hospital, and also within my recovery. And it was about bringing my mind back to the present moment and not trying to get too ahead of myself and going into fear and worry. And it was about trusting my own body to heal and changing the relationship with my body. I'd been really hard on my body for so long. I'd criticized it. I'd said all these things inside my head, all the things it wasn't doing. And my body turned itself around, and it saved my life. And I have such gratitude for that moving forward. And so everything in my life changed from that point. I started to be kinder to myself. I realized the power of our words. I realized our mind, body, spirit are all connected. They're not separate. If one's off, they're all off. And I went on this very beautiful spiritual journey, one that I'd already started, but it deepened. And I realized that I didn't have to settle in life, that I wasn't happy, I didn't want to be in the corporate world, that I could leave, that wasn't this predetermined path for me. And that's when I moved over here to Australia, and within 6 weeks of being here, I fell pregnant naturally with my daughter, who, as I mentioned, is now 14. And that was proof to me. I had this moment of lying on my bed, thinking to myself, I feel really content and peaceful for the first time in my life. Don't ever let me forget this moment. And it's a moment that I can go back to if I'm ever struggling. I can go back to that moment and just have that trust again. You're on the right path, you're doing the right thing, everything's gonna work out. So it's really powerful. Our mindset is incredibly powerful on our fertility journey.
Well, I think on any kind of journey, any kind of healing journey, whether it's making decisions, and so I have this patient of mine who is in my head. He's actually a man, so it has nothing to do with fertility, except he is on a healing journey. There's a lot going on there, but we talk about this. We talk about the mindset and the meditation, and he's one of those that is just always really frustrated, right? And when I talk to him, and so I'm saying all of this because there's so many out there who say exactly what this was just yesterday, what he said, and probably what many say. He's like, I can't be still. And there's a lot of neurological stuff there too, but it's like, I can't be still, I can't calm my brain, I can't do this, I can't do that, I don't know how. And so for you in your journey, you had to kind of go through the process of learning how to meditate and how to understand that your mindset plays such a big role. When you're working with people now who have this, I don't know how to do this, my mind isn't still, it just doesn't work for me. People can do it and I can't, what do you say to that?
I totally understand that, and I
Mm-hmm.
do see a lot of clients that fit into that sort of category. I do my sessions out in nature because when we're in nature and we move our bodies, we start to sort of quieten our mind and we move back into our body. So I take people for a walk through a nature reserve, or I do a
Mm-hmm.
session on the beach, and it we end up being able to ground at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're drawing the natural energy up in through the soles of our feet into our body, and that helps to still the mind, that helps us to be present. So there's lots of different ways of meditating. You can do a walking meditation, you can walk in nature. Weeding the garden is a
Mm-hmm.
form of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Dancing is a beautiful way to get out of your head and quieten your mind.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different things that we can do. I certainly was taught when I first learnt meditation in a Buddhist centre years ago that you had to sit for half an hour cross-legged in an
Yeah.
uncomfortable position and all the
Sit up
things.
straight and yeah.
Yeah, and it's not that. It's
Mm-mm.
literally you can focus on your breath for 2 minutes, breathing in, breathing out,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on your breath for 2 minutes every day, and that will have huge benefits. So it doesn't need to be as hard as it can be portrayed. And I like to make it very simple for people and work with them and where they're at and build things up. So build up for success. Let's start with 2 minutes today.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go for a 5 minute walk in nature and see how you feel afterwards.
Yeah.
And then build from there. So we're not adding another thing to
Mm-hmm.
the to-do list,
Mm-hmm.
which life is busy, we know that, and it can feel overwhelming, particularly for people who have very active minds, or people
Mm-hmm.
who have ADHD and those sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things. It can
Yep.
just be too much to
Mm-hmm.
be like, right, we're going to sit in silence for 30 minutes and
Yeah.
meditate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really tough one. I learned something recently that I have been using for myself, and it's really quick. And I can move into more of a meditation, but it has helped that calming the mind process. And there's a name, probably a lot of people have heard of him, but I can't think of who it is right now. But anyway, you sit with your eyes closed, obviously, and you count backwards from 100, but you envision the numbers, like you see the numbers in your mind. So you have something to focus on that helps you to calm. And so, my husband, he'll envision writing the numbers, where I envision it more like a flip clock, right? Where the numbers are sort of flipping. But it really is interesting to me that I can get into the 20s and the teens and feel like nothing's happened, but that by the time I get to zero, I literally have the ability just to kind of sit, and whether it's pray or what are the things, what are my goals, what do I want out of this whole experience, right? And it does take you, it gives you that ability just to be still for a little bit. And so much of it is what it's about is, it's the biochemistry behind it, is calming the mind, bringing the mind out of the sympathetic, the go 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 go, to the parasympathetic, which is how we allow the body to work and how we allow the body to rejuvenate. It's and then on top of that, what you're saying is so good about grounding. I just bought 2 grounding mats. So if I'm in my home office or if I'm in my clinic office and I am now barefoot on my grounding mat. You can get one for your bed. I don't have one yet, but that's next on my list, right? And so it is the energy and the frequencies of the earth that give us so much, and it's free. The grounding mat's not free, but going outside and being barefoot in the grass is free and gives us an amazing amount of that good, clear energy, that healing energy that we need from the earth that God created, right? This is created for our benefit. It's fascinating stuff.
It's beautiful, and I really encourage people to go and watch sunset. And for me, if I'm in a real head funk, I go and stand under the night sky and just breathe. And within a couple of minutes, I feel a shift in my energy. I feel calmer. I am able to reflect about how big is this problem really. You know, like I'm this tiny part of this incredible universe. How big is this thing? Is it going to be important to me in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, even tomorrow, probably?
Perspective. Yeah, perspective is key. Yeah. Oh, so good. And so, what are some other? I don't know. What are some other? So, okay, the mindset piece of it, which is a lot of work, right? It's a practice. It is a practice. Everything that we do in life is well, so much of it is a practice. And so, taking some pressure off of yourself, if this is not an easy practice for you, I don't think it's an easy practice for anyone until you're able to get into it. But there are many other things I'm sure that you're doing to help people work through this infertility journey. What are some other things that you're doing that can be beneficial for people?
Setting boundaries and learning to say no is a huge part of a fertility journey. When you think about all the interactions that you will have throughout the day, a week, a month with children, which can be very triggering for people, you have to learn to protect your own heart, and sometimes that does mean disappointing other people. But you know, particularly around birthday parties and Christmas and family gatherings and baby showers and all those things, if you've just had a miscarriage or you've had a stillborn baby or you're going through an IVF cycle, sometimes it's the last place that you feel like you want to be. And giving yourself permission to be kind to yourself and prioritize yourself is really, really important. And I think, particularly as women, we don't know always how to do that because we're taught to always give to other people before ourselves. And so that's something that I work with my clients on. Another big thing is introducing joy back into life and actually scheduling in time away, time to do something fun, time to get creative, whatever it is that fills that person up, because it can be a long, arduous, emotional roller coaster, and you stop living. Everything becomes about appointments and dates and thinking, well, I can't do that because I might be pregnant and I might have to go through another IVF cycle. So you put off life. And in the process, you start to lose yourself and it starts to impact relationships. So actively setting aside time to do something for yourself, whether that's self-care or something that brings you joy, brings that balance back into the fertility journey. I wish I'd done that more. I lost many years of my life constantly thinking about the future, thinking about this future child, and I wasn't present always with my beautiful son when he was really little, and I regret that. I do regret that.
What a great lesson that you can share with others, because it is hard to when you're pushing so hard for something, which is not necessarily the way to do it either, right? We can't push for something. We can live in the moment and do the things that we can do, but you can't just make something happen. But to have that experience that you can share your own loss of time, with your child, and to help people to bring that in perspective, so important, really, really important. We're in this situation as a society. It's craziness. Where the IVF treatments have gone way up, natural fertility has gone way down, male sperm count is down like 50% over 50 years. 50%. I mean, you're like, what? How does that even happen, 50%? And how how do we change that? And so I know that you work only with women, right? You're not working with couples, or you are working with couples?
Yeah, I work with couples, so women, couples,
Okay.
Sessions separately, sessions together.
Okay.
I sort of tailor it for whatever the individual or couple needs. I work with women who are going through IVF by themselves as wanting to be single, not wanting to be single mums, but they haven't found their partner, so they're wanting to have a child.
Okay, cool. So talk to me about when you're working with people who have these significant hormone imbalances. What are you doing to help them through just that balancing act, bringing their little bodies back to a normal place where they have the ability to conceive?
I think it's looking at everything as that mind, body, spirit connection. So there's definitely things that you can do, the basic things around nutrition, and you know that better than anybody else. Exercise. I think sound healing is a really beautiful thing to do as well. I think the vibration of music is very calming for our system, so I encourage people to do that. Breath work is very powerful as well. That's had some significant impact for people. And I look at this as the things that we do are things that are going to help you through life. So regardless of whether you're on a fertility journey or not, these are all things that are going to benefit you regardless of whether you end up having a child or not. And that has to be a real conversation, because obviously people come wanting, when you ask people what are your goals, of course they want to have a baby, but I can't promise them that.
Yep.
And I'm very upfront about that. What I can say is that we can work together to get your mind, body and spirit in the best place possible to welcome a baby into the world. But I can't promise you that you're going to fall pregnant, because there's so many other things, there's so many habitual patterns and intergenerational trauma, and there's so many layers to unpack and work through. And so I might start a session with somebody and think that we're going to look at X, Y, and Z, and they say something in the session and we end up somewhere completely different. So I use my intuition to guide those sessions and see where the greatest need is. I also work with people from an energy healing perspective. So I'm a Reiki practitioner. So I do hands-on sessions if they live locally, but distant healing sessions if they don't. And we know that energy has no boundaries, so a distant healing session can be just as powerful, if not more powerful, than an in-person one. So it's just about bringing in that rest, that relaxation, allowing the body to feel safe. Often when we're on this fertility journey, our bodies don't feel safe, and we've put all these protective layers up, and we're trying to protect our own heart and trying to uncover those unconscious beliefs around, do I really believe that I can be a mum? What's happened in my relationship with my mum or my grandma or the other female people in my life that may have caused me to actually be a bit scared of having my own baby, because I don't want to repeat those patterns. There's so many different ways that we can work together and look at this.
So I do think it's fascinating, kind of, going back to one of the things that you said about when you finally felt truly calm and protected and good, is when you found yourself pregnant, when you got pregnant with your third child. And, we hear these stories so often, and I feel like we don't always connect that if we can calm the body and feel safe and feel comfortable and work toward just that, that can be a key player in helping the body to become pregnant. It's just feeling safe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I'd learned yoga earlier as well in my journey. It was that thing that I was really curious about when I was on my fertility journey, but stupidly I thought, I can't go to yoga because I'm not flexible, I'm going to look stupid.
I hear that all the time.
So I was completely my ego with that. I was just like, oh, everybody's totally going to be looking at me, laughing at me. I mean, of course they weren't. They were going to be doing their own practice, couldn't have cared less what I was doing.
Right.
And I started doing yoga actually once I'd already had my third child, a couple of years after I had my third child. And that has been transformative for me. So again, that's something that I really recommend to people because it's a beautiful practice that helps you to get back into your body, helps you to be present. It's something that can help you be mindful throughout the day. It can help reduce stress and tension. You know, when I'm working, if I feel tense in my body, I can go and do a couple of yoga poses and shift the energy, and that's very powerful. So there's many different things that we can try aside from the fertility drugs, which all have their place, and for some people that is their only option.
Yep.
But there's definitely things that we can do to complement that. I've also done reflexology. That's actually how I found out I was pregnant the second time. And when I ended up having my first miscarriage, I didn't even know I was pregnant. And I was in this reflexology session, and he said, oh, you've got a really hot uterus. I've never experienced that before. I don't know what that means. And I went home and did a pregnancy test, and sure enough, I was pregnant.
Interesting. Excuse me. Wow. So interesting. So, do you have any favorite stories of people you've worked with?
I think my favorite stories are when somebody has that realization that the life that they have lived and how they have perceived themselves changes. So the fertility journey for me was actually a journey to self-love and acceptance, of finally accepting every part of myself, even the parts that I had previously believed were flawed. And so when somebody can look themselves in the mirror and say, I love you for the first time, for me, even though their desire is to have a baby, I know that the greatest gift has actually been given to them, because we know that the relationship you have with yourself is the only relationship that is guaranteed. And therefore, if you can make it the best that it can be, regardless of all the adversity that you go through in life, with or without a family, you'll be much better placed to face that with a lot more ease and grace. And that's the ripple effect of that. The ripple effect of people actually liking themselves and then loving themselves is huge. We can't measure it. It's immeasurable, the ripple effect of one person changing the relationship with themselves and how that impacts people around them. So those are my greatest stories, both in my fertility coaching and also in my transformation coaching. I love that. It just brings me such joy to see that look in their eyes for the first time.
I love that. It makes me think of, one of the things that I love so much about fertility and, fertility period, but it's the amount of control that we have that I think many of us don't understand the amount of control that we have. So many of you have heard me talk about this all the time, but I love epigenetics. When taking it back to even just that mindset, that loving yourself, that not the constant, beating yourself up, right? Taking all of that out has the ability to change our biochemistry, right? And so where we are today in our health today, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of those things have the ability to impact our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids, just like the food that we eat, the toxins that we're exposed to, or the toxins that we need to get rid of, right? I'm thinking like we have these exposures, whether it's the environmental exposures, the xenoestrogens that are in our environment that can play a role on all of our detoxification pathways, but also there's xenoestrogens, right? They're going to throw our hormones way out of whack if we are not aware of the things that are in our environment and we're putting on our skin and we're cleaning our homes with and we're eating in our food, right? These things are so impactful to everything that we are, men, women, kiddos, and having the understanding how to kind of unpack that, and knowing that you're doing it today, yes, for your own health, but you're also doing it because we have the ability to affect the health of the future by what I'm doing right now, right? Or if I were to, if I'm trying to get pregnant, men and women have the ability to affect the health of the future. It's really fascinating, and it gives us this amazing amount of power and this amazing amount of accountability, right? But it's really, I just think it's one of the most beautiful things in the world, knowing that it's so much of it's in my control, even if I feel like it's not.
Exactly, I completely agree with you, and I think when I learned that I can't control what's going on outside of me, all I can be in charge of is what is going on internally, the thoughts that I say to myself, how I show up for myself every day, and how I show up in the world. And that made me commit to myself and to my future generations that I'll never have the privilege of meeting, to do the work, to do the healing, to do the hard stuff, to show up every single day, even when it gets hard, and say, it stops with me.
Yeah.
Is incredibly powerful. And I'm determined to break some of the patterns from the past and deal with some of the intergenerational trauma, because it's there. And I don't want to pass that on to my children and my children's children and their children.
I have always been, I love epigenetics, and I've always been one where I'm thinking, okay, so today's the day, and then, I look at it looking at the future and how much power we have. But what you just said is so important. It was another colleague of mine who just sort of made me open up a little bit. I was like, I don't think about epigenetics from the past. I mean, I do now, but at the time, it was, who I am today is also impacted by 7 generations behind me. And so what did those people experience? What did they go through? Whether it's food, lack of, the emotional traumas that they might have gone through, all of that stuff is passed on. And to have that knowledge is amazing, because we can then do just that. We go, okay, this is the stuff that stops with me, and I might need to figure out how to make it stop with me, right? We all need our team of people to help us understand, what does that look like to make this stop with me? What does it look like to make this new health start with me, so my kids and my grandkids and on for the generations ahead have the ability to be as healthy as possible. It's amazing stuff.
It is. It's truly changed my life, and I think it also, when we consider that some of the stuff that we're dealing with is not our own, I think it takes the pressure off us a little bit too. It gives us a perspective that we are responsible for it stopping with us now, but some of the stuff is not ours, and to just be a bit kinder to ourselves, because we are so unkind to ourselves. We say things that we wouldn't dream of saying to other people, and we say them constantly throughout the day. 90% of our thoughts are negative. It's like you wake up in the morning, you're already fighting a losing battle.
It's so true, and it's so sad. But I would say that's another practice. I became ultra aware of that with my own mother, who it was this, she was the sweetest, smartest little lady, but she beat herself up all the time. So what did I do? I beat myself up all the time, and it was the realization of what she was doing to herself that made me take a step back and think, okay, Nikki, what are you doing to you? So it is an everyday practice where I still say things to myself like, okay, that's not okay. That's not okay, and it's not true. So let's just back up and spin it into the positive. Because to always live in the negative is just not a good place to be, biochemically, biomechanically, for mental and emotional health, any of that stuff, right? It just adds on to the stress and adds on to the pressure and adds on to the inflammatory response and it adds on to the symptoms that we deal with, instead of changing it back to mindset, being nice to ourselves. And being nice to ourselves is, yes, it's the way we talk to ourselves, it's the way we feed ourselves, it's the way we see the world around us. There's so much, and there's so much beauty. Life is hard. The beautiful stuff is, that's what's going to help us when we have to go through the hard stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think for me, when I lay in intensive care and when I was recovering in hospital and I couldn't get out of bed, the things that were really important to me weren't the house, the car, the job. It was those moments that I knew that I may not have with my family. It was watching another sunset or another sunrise. It was all about the free stuff and the stuff that was deeply impactful, yet I had been so distracted by the focus on my corporate career and climbing the ladder and having 4 children really quickly so I could get back to it, and to a job ironically that I wasn't even enjoying. And so I do feel really blessed that I had that big wake up call and that I was given that second chance to live a different life, and one that I am deeply passionate about and deeply grateful for, and has already changed the lives of my children because I can work from home, I'm present with them, I'm a much nicer mum.
Yep.
I have a huge amount more patience and time and energy for them. So it's been such a gift, you know. But if you told me that when I was going through the torture I was going through, I just, you know, before I sort of had that moment of surrender, I just was like in victim mode of why is this happening to me, and push it away, and you know.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book. When did your book come out?
It came out December 22. December,
okay.
22.
Great. So I'm going to show it to you again. Infertility saved my life. Talk to me a little bit about, I know probably we talked a lot about what's in the book. Is there anything else in the book that you want to hit on that people should know about?
So the book is broken into 2 parts. The first part is my story, so from age 12 when I first hit puberty through to age 36 when I had my final child. And then the second part of the book is all the tools, techniques, insight and wisdom that I learned along the way, the very hard way, so that other people don't have to do it the hard way. And there's a section in there that I think is quite important about miscarriage, and if you are supporting somebody through a miscarriage, what to say to somebody and what not to say to somebody. I think that we don't sort of understand that because we haven't been taught that, and our words can be deeply impactful, as we've just spoken about. What we say to ourselves, and it affects ourselves, but what we say to other people is also deeply impactful. So it's, that section is quite powerful and quite helpful. But the people who've read my book, even if they're not on a fertility journey, they've found that second part quite interesting because there's lots of tools and techniques to help them through adversity, no matter what that looks like. For me, I believe that adversity is our key to transformation, and secondary infertility was that vehicle to transformation. But for other people, it could be the loss of somebody they love, or the end of a relationship, or moving to another city, or the end of a career. There's lots of different ways that we get moved through life to figure out what's really important to us and what isn't.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you know, we started out, and I say this all the time, but it's the hard stuff that helps us grow, that is how we grow, right? And it's not always fun, but it's important for us to go through those things for our own benefit, so we have the realization of the things that are important to us, but then again, to share, right? The lessons that you've learned, you know, how many people have you saved having to go through what you've been through, because of this book, because of the time that you spend coaching, because of the time you spend learning how to help people through, hopefully, well, help people through their own journey, but to allow, hopefully, keep them from the deep, deep stuff that you had to go through. I mean, most people don't start out thinking we're going to get pregnant and almost die. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, that's a, yeah, it's a hard one to comprehend. I'm sure for you as well.
It was, and I knew that there was a risk because I was under 35, I had PCOS, so there was a risk that I was going to overstimulate, but I didn't for 1 minute think I would fall into the less than 1% of people that hyperstimulate. You take the odds, and you don't think it's going to be you. And I certainly didn't even realise at the time how seriously sick I was until I went back to the UK, and when my doctor looked at my medical notes from the hospital and said, these results must be wrong. And I said, why? And he said, well, you shouldn't be here. And I was like, okay. So there was a grieving process for me then around being deeply grateful, but also realising how close I'd been to losing everything.
Yeah. Amazing. I want to make sure people know how to find you and how, of course, to find your book. But first, is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to make sure that we cover?
I think I just want to mention that we have all the answers inside us. And for me, developing my intuition and working with my clients around developing intuition and learning that our heart is a master thinker, not a mind, has been very transformative. When we are very grounded and we're connected to ourselves, we can overcome anything that is put in front of us, but it comes from within. We're not going to find it outside of ourselves. It really comes from deep within, and we can do that connection through all the ways that we've spoken about today, and anything that deeply resonates with people that helps them just to get back into their body. So I encourage people to go on that beautiful journey with connecting with self, because it is truly life-changing and transformative.
Yeah, agree with you 100%. And so how do people find you?
People can find me through my website, which is sarahwilloughby.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Sarah Willoughby 2019, Facebook and Instagram, Sarah Willoughby Australia, and people can have a free conversation with me, sign up on the website and just have a chat, find out where you're at, what you would like support with. My book is available in global bookstores, all the main ones, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, etc. It's also available on my website if you would like a signed copy. So
awesome. So you see people, and you said this, but I want to make sure that everybody hears it. You see people both in person as well as virtually. So you can see people from all over the world.
I do. Yes, I have a very good global network, and during COVID I actually started working online, so I probably do more work online than I do in person.
Same.
To be honest.
Same. Yeah, it is. It's really interesting. I did some online prior to COVID, but now, I mean, I would see people all over, but now it has really expanded because people think about it more, and you just have the ability. So, yeah, I'm totally with you. It's changed a lot of things, hasn't it? But it's some things are good, and I think this is a good one.
Yes.
So, wonderful. Thank you so much. I've really been looking forward to this. I just love the title of your book. I think it stinks, but it's a head turn. You're like, how does that work? And so, when you can come out of what you've come out of with such a good, healthy, positive attitude and helping so many other people, I just think it's just really beautiful. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Nikki. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I love our connection, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next.
Me too. All right, wonderful. Well, stick with me just for a second. Everybody, thank you for being here. Taste Life Nutrition radio and podcast streaming live on KUHSdenver.com. every Thursday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. You can find us here. So I appreciate you being here. Go to the website. If you would like, you can fill out a free assessment that I can check out. We can chat a little bit and see if I might be able to help you. And yeah, Taste Life Nutrition and all the places. So let me know if there's anything that I can do to be of service to you or anyone you know. And we will see you here next week, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Thanks, everybody. Take care.